Hello, folks. How you doing? Before we get started, I'm going to cut to Stacy Seabrook.
You can't avoid, you can't delay, but you can never escape your judgment day, dear Andy. Time running out on you. I want to know who convinced you to say that ridiculous story on the stand that day, dear Andy. The time's running out on you. Was it Bold Jimmy or Sabbatical Tom or Sweaty Kenny or
Sweaty
No
Kenny
Won't Be Gone, dear Andy? I'm running out on you. I said, dear Andy, can't you see they were using you? I know how you told us how you were rough with that bookcase, but how did all the coins on top stay in the virtually same place, dear Andy? Waiting for answers from you. I said, dear Andy, there's time to still do the right thing to do. Cause dear Andy, the time's running out on you.
All right. That's our good friend Stacy Seabrook there. So that's his new one, folks. Go over to his channel. Give him some views. Hit subscribe if you haven't, Show Stacy some love. Speaking of Stacy and what we're going to talk about first. So you guys remember when I started talking about Mammothon last week or last weekend or whatever it was. Let me get my camera turned on. When I started talking about Mammothon,
it's better before
last week. Yeah, the Mad Scot's here too. Anyway, so when I started talking about Mammothon last week or so or whatever, you guys remember Stacy popped up in the comments and said, "Oh, I'm going to do a segment," and so that's it. I'm holding you to it, Stacy. So just so you know, buddy. Anyways, so we are doing Mammothon again, folks, and I will have to apologize. We were originally doing it with one way of thinking in mind, but there's been some discussion and everything, and actually we're going to go ahead and keep it the way it was last year. We're going to do it at pretty much approximately the same time as we did in 2019 at the end of April. I think it's working out to be, if I'm not mistaken, something like the 24th and 25th of April. And that's going to be basically a year from last year when we did it last year. So some people may be wondering, what is Mammothon? You just watched the documentary 6 months ago, and you're sitting there going, Erekose, what the hell are you going on about? Okay, well, I haven't given the Mad Scot a chance to speak yet, but trust me, he will get his words in. So last year, what we did is we were all kind of getting geared up for Raleigh in June, and there was a lot going on. A lot of things were getting filed. It was really, really busy. And there was just a lot going on. So we ended up doing a 48-hour live event. I'll tell you what, it was pretty crazy and the details are kind of sketchy, but this guy's probably going to tell you that it originally started as a 24-hour event and that I'm the one that said it should be a 48-hour event. I don't know if that's true or not, but it ended up going off like gangbusters. It was spectacular. And what we did was we had 4 YouTubers at the time. We had four channels that we had that were, prepared to cover the content we wanted to cover and prepared to kind of have the same kind of level of class that we would have, and come to expect on our own channels. So we had 4 of us that were kind of just ready to go. And we all took, what did it end up being? We each did 4 or 3 or 4? 4-hour segments.
4 hours.
Yeah, 4-hour segments we did. Yeah. It was a wild weekend, 48-hour event, but the 4 of us, it was myself, Erekose, Ali Apperson at the time, Tracy Strunsey over at Basically a Lawyer, and Mr. Capaldi, who you see here with me today. So we, all 4 of us, split it up, and we were all doing 4-hour segments that entire weekend. Now, what we were doing while this was all going on, we were bringing on guests. It was a lot of people got to meet their favorite Redditors for the first time during Mammothon because I was having a few of the Redditors on my segments. Allie and Paul ended up having Henbury and a few others over on their segments and everything. And so people got to kind of meet and hear from their favorite Redditors for the first time, and we were just basically creating more awareness, talking about Stephen and Brendan's case, putting information out there for people. And we were just trying to, do something kind of big and create a lot of noise. Well, it went off pretty well because it was also a fundraiser for Stephen and Brendan. So not only were we trying to get good information out there for everybody, and not only were we bringing on, guests that people were very interested in who have been researching this case and are among the tops in the researchers in this case. We were getting them on. It was phenomenal, but we also raised about $5,000 for Stephen and Brendan by taking donations the entire weekend. We're not doing donations this time, but in the first Mammothon we did, and we ended up putting $2,500 on Stephen's books and $2,500 on Brendan's books. That's been deposited. If anybody wonders about whether or not that money got to Stephen and Brendan, there are videos on my channel where you can see the receipts of the money paid, and there can be no doubt. So, but that is what we did the first time. It was phenomenal. It was great. And, those are a lot of the things that I have to say about it, but why don't I give Mr. Capaldi, the Mad Scot, a chance to say something?
Well, this could take a while, so if you want to get yourself a...
Don't worry, I'll interrupt you whenever I feel.
A Dr. P. Here's a roll call of everybody that was involved in Mammothon, the Mammothon participants in alphabetical order. They were as follows: Ali Apperson, Andrew Newton, Ashley Strunsey, Brandon Maddox, Carla Chase, Chad Keller, Courtney Skinner, Denise Rainey, Erekose, Falcon Aponda, Henbury.
Falcon Apoda.
Apoda, okay, sorry.
Right. Sorry.
Henbury, Jamie Hart, Jennifer Fenn, get it right, Fenn. Everybody knows her as Fenn. Jennifer, JJax61, somebody called John Farrak, Julie Pom Pom, Jinxie, Linda K, Lisa. No, I have trouble with this. Stakowski. Yes. Lisa Zakowski.
Yeah.
Mama Phoenix. Somebody called Mark Hodinot. Michael Caccini. Was it? Yeah, Caccini. Yeah, Michael Caccini.
Right. He was on with Tracy. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. Some Paul Capaldi fella. Perplexed QT. Razor. Reporting live from my sofa.
Yeah.
Ripper Jack Gaming.
Yeah.
Rule Griffin. Rule. Yeah. Seven pairs of panties. Sandra Greenman.
Yeah.
Seeking Truth for Good.
Yeah.
Stacy Seabrook. Stephen Climb Runner. Stephen Avery Sr. Taylor Trunsey. Strunsey, TikTok Manitrock, the TikTok Manitrock.
Right. On Twitter, folks. Yep.
Yes. Taylor Strunsey, TikTok Manitrock, Tracy Strunsey, Tracy Keogh, and Mr. Texas Two Counties, Travis Williamson. So that's a pretty long list.
And Ziggy, folks.
Yes.
And Ziggy.
I always felt that there were other names that I never got round to doing on the list, but
make sure you add Ziggy's. She's deserving of being there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
yes, it was over. It was over 5,000 in the end. Yep.
Oops, this way. There you go.
Good.
That's for Ziggy, folks. Sorry, you gave me the segue, dude.
Yep. Absolutely. So,
Mammothon.
How many people have we got involved in it this time?
Well, right now,
probably more.
Right now, I haven't asked anybody because there's a lot of things that go into planning Mammothon, a lot of things to consider. So, haven't been asking a lot of people yet. But what I can say is I'm pretty sure about a few, and I just am not sure how many more. But the idea this year is to have a little more than 4 hosts, so that number one, it's not so grueling on the hosts themselves as it kind of was last year. Even though it was grueling, it was extremely gratifying, but we all got our sleep schedules all completely screwed up that weekend, and we were like recovering for weeks after that. Well, maybe it's just me, but anyway. But it was wild because we were wanting to stay up and watch each other, but we had to actually sleep at some point, and it was just wild that way. Hopefully having more hosts will kind of make that a little more, alleviate some of that. But not only that, is that we want to have hopefully a few more hosts this year, because that will show that the community has grown, that the people that are out there talking publicly about the case, there's more of them cropping up, because there's a lot of people looking at this going, yeah, there's something clearly wrong here. And I for one think that that's a good thing for people that maybe aren't following the cases like doggedly as we are, that they can look at and go, well, that's interesting that more and more are popping up. So that's that's basically some of the idea there. I know Linda Kay will be a host. Paul will be a host. I will be a host. We are pretty much firm about Andrew Whitehead being a host. We're going to have Stacy as a host. Obviously, Stacy Seabrook. We are actually, for right now, those are the ones, but there's still other ones that I'm going to eventually talk to. So it's just, Mammothon is a huge headache, folks, to plan it. It's gratifying, don't get me wrong, but there's just a lot of logistics of planning that go into it. So I'll have more, but you can count on those folks that I just mentioned their name. They're pretty solid in. So
well, I think you can also add a few more names to those people that we can press gang into doing a slot, aren't there?
I don't know.
And the thing is, I would imagine that any that a lot of people out there, if they're not hosting, they will then be invited to onto the chat and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully we'll have even more people participating than that huge long list last year.
Yeah,
we'll have all of those plus a few more.
Yeah, hopefully so. I'm already reaching out and putting out some feelers to get hopefully some interesting hosts for Mammothon as well. I know some of the hosts like Linda and stuff are already like reaching out to some of the Redditors that she really likes and stuff to ask, because she wants them to come on and talk on when she's hosting, and that I like seeing that kind of excitement. that's another part of this that I'm kind of excited about, even though sometimes it gets a little rough, it's on social media. Some of the really gratifying parts is like seeing people get excited about supporting Stephen and Brendan. That's for me that's a big deal, and I like seeing it.
Well, yeah, it gets a bit rough. I think I know what you're alluding to.
Not everybody, you can't please all the people all the time, folks, unfortunately, and that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah, and you continue that with I can't please everybody all the time. Tomorrow's not today. Today's not your day. Tomorrow's not looking very good either. That's no. Yeah. What I've particularly like is when you get people completely out of the blue get in touch with you and say, look, I've done this research, this paper, whatever. People like McGilla.
Yeah.
Just out of the blue, just gets in touch and says, would you have a look at this and see what?
And I find McGilla,
see what you think of that.
I find McGilla's stuff completely very interesting. Everything that he's come out with so far was just very thought provoking. That dude's on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I mean, I would imagine at some point we would not just be discussing Stephen Avery, but some of the other cases ongoing in Wisconsin. Hint, hint. Shirt behind me.
Right, like Eagle Nation, of course.
Yeah. Where are we with that? Is there?
Well, you and I. Well, I still have to ask Stephen K when they're going to be available. I don't know. They might not be available Sunday afternoon, so I'll have to check with them and see what's up with that.
Yeah.
Anyway, but Paul and I will be live with Stephen K on Paul's channel coming up soon, very soon. Now that you can see that shirt hanging behind him, we've been waiting for him to receive that, and so now that he's got it, we're gonna go ahead and go forward with that. I believe K is in the hospital at the moment, actually.
Oh, dear.
So yeah, we might have to do that next weekend.
Right.
So I'm thinking that's probably. And I do wish Kay luck. Yeah. I know she's going under the knife, so I saw her Facebook post. So best of luck to her, and I hope she comes out of it with all good. I don't think she's really worried. She's a tough one. So but just to give my well wishes.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's just where are we with the $50 million bullet? When does it premiere?
Well, it was set to come out in December 5th, which would have been the anniversary of Michael Funk's death.
Right.
Right now they're just at that stage of planning, getting funding, doing whatever. So there's not really much happening at the moment. Right. It's just kind of, But that's why Stephen K are now basically doing their own kind of, promotion and talking about it. They're going to be going over on Jerome's channel. Jerome over to the French Wrecking Crew. You guys see him over there in the comments. They're going to be going over on his channel. They've actually got somebody. They've already got somebody that they know that lives in Brussels that's going to be able to translate French to English and stuff, so that the French crowd that listen to Jerome will be able to. Basically, the Stephen K and everything that's being said in English will be translated into French. So, anyway,
that's good. Yes, yeah. I mean, definitely. I think we should have a Belgian couple of hours on Marathon.
Yeah, well, I think I'd like to have Jerome as well. I don't know. There's other people who are involved in making these decisions, so I can't make them by myself, unfortunately. But I'm pretty sure. Jerome is definitely one of the names I like. But
yep. I'm hoping also Millbilly will we'll do a host for a wee while, or if that's not possible, obviously to come on and talk about various things. And I've had a guy get in touch with me called Fleetside. I've shared you one or two bits that he sent me, which were quite interesting. I think we'll need to do it on your channel, whereby you can screen share the documents that he's generated.
Right.
Because I don't have that capability.
Yeah, you do. You're just lazy.
No, I don't. I've just got the basic StreamYard. It doesn't allow me to. I'm
not paying for my StreamYard, and it lets me do it.
Well, I don't know how. Because I've tried.
T1, what's up, buddy? You're coming on as one of my guests on Mammothon, right, T1? Right?
Well, that's Millbilly saying that I'm in, so that's a good one.
I think as far as I can tell, Millbilly is going to be, one of the ones too. I mean, I have to have a final discussion with the other people who are, I know everybody looks at me as like a big face of Mammothon, but there were actually other people behind the scenes who were actually a big part of the decision-making process. So we all just have to have one more meeting to decide who and how many hosts we want. There's a concern about it getting too big and being overwhelming. I don't know. We're still having discussions about it. That's why I don't want to say too much until we finish discussing it. So that's, basically where I'm at.
Good. Okay. Yes, as I say, it's great being sent this stuff by the various people out there wanting to get on. Yeah, as Scott says, getting on the train.
Yep. Scott always says get on the train.
Yep.
I think his computer keyboard has a button that says that.
You think so?
Anyways.
But no, what do you make of this Bob Ziegelbauer?
Yeah, this is the guy manager. What's his job?
He is Manitowoc County Executive, Bob Ziegelbauer. So,
like the leader of city council?
Well, yeah, basically, when Manitowoc finally managed to find somebody that they could prevent from being involved in the case, and they decided it was the coroner.
Right.
Deborah Kakach.
Oh, he's one of the ones that went and told her?
Well, I'm not sure whether he was actually involved with the council, with the executive council. Then, because according to the article I read, it was 2006 that he joined. But I don't know whether that's because he became the leader in 2006 or whether he was simply joined then. I don't know for sure. But certainly Jim Bray was a member of the that executive. And as I say, it was them that eventually said to her, you just have to leave it alone. You just have to step back and not get involved. And Jim Bray is another politician there, an alderman of one of the districts of Manitowoc. Of course, he's the one that famously said that he could tell that Stephen Avery was guilty by the look in his eyes.
Right.
And what happened was that when Making a Murderer first came out, I think over there across the pond, you use the term "circling the wagons."
Yeah, right.
For me,
when you're getting ready to cover your ass as an organization, it's called circling the wagons.
I mean, it's amazing the if you like the parallels between Making a Murderer and the Michael Funk situation. When Michael Funk was first killed, the press report given by the police was that they issued a warning to him saying, drop your weapons, freeze, all that kind of stuff. That he was given fair warning. He ignored that, and so
Right.
he got shot.
Right.
Well, we now know that
That's a
they
lie.
weren't being honest about that, were they?
You actually sounded like you were struggling to put that mildly. Yeah, they just
Yeah,
straight up lied their asses off.
yeah, yeah. And what I find quite strange is that, given the fact that they'd given that press release, to then be called out by the fact that somehow the press got hold of the footage from is it like the dash camera of a police car
There was a
down
police
the road?
parked, yeah, down at the end of the alley that caught Michael Funk running out and everything that happened. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he literally just runs out. He runs to the back of the car.
And
Excuse me.
yeah, and Hopper says, "Drop your weapon." Like about
No, he
10
doesn't.
seconds. No, listen. About 10 seconds after they've put about 19 bullets into Mike Funk. Okay? About 10 seconds after 19 bullets. He couldn't remember if he said it before or after 19 pieces of lead went through this man. He couldn't remember that. Yeah.
Mm.
No, it was misrepresented in very deliberately by Nina, and I am going to make them own that.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? You know, when you've clearly been found out in these sort of lies, you know, the sort of lies that we've come across with, well, you know, Tom Fallon and Norm Garn, handing back bones, and then giving Kathleen Zellner the runaround, saying yes, we'll get you those bones to test,
Right.
and we're going to get you the RAV4 to test. I don't know how many RAV4s they're going to give her to test, but
Just the one.
is there just the one? Is there?
That's personally me. The percentages, playing the percentages, I believe there's one. I'm not saying I'm not open to the possibility that there could be multiples. I just find it to be an unlikely scenario. But I know some people like that theory, so I don't want to make those people feel slighted. I'm open-minded to it.
Yeah. Personally, nothing would surprise us in this case, would there? There would
Right.
be nothing that would surprise us as to you know, Teresa alive or dead, or how many RAV4s there are.
There's so many wild cards in the case already. It's, you know.
Yeah. But it was like when I first phoned Herman, and I was quite surprised. He was sort of just sort of blasé about it. You know, we've you know, we just carry on as normal. It's not affected us at all. And you wonder, is that genuine, or is that them bluffing the fact that really they're in a bit of a panic now?
Yeah, because they realized that what they did was dumb. They realized that the way they handled the situation was bad. You know, the hasty entry was a joke. It fell apart from the first step in the doorway. They ended up putting the hostages in greater danger just by that act. And then to compound it, an officer that had been compromised and hit in the head by a bullet wasn't forcibly removed from the situation when he refused to stand down. And there's actual footage now. I've seen the actual footage where he is actually asked, he's told by a superior officer that he's not supposed to go back and get involved twice, and he does anyway. So by not removing this guy from the situation, this whole thing would have gone a different way. But because he had been hit, he wanted someone to die because he had been hit in the head, and he wanted his pound of flesh. And he saw a gun in a person's hand, and that justified it enough to him that he was going to get it. That's I believe somebody besides Hopper holds that gun. They don't kill Michael Funk, or they do actually warn him. One of the two things, not the way Hopper handled it. Hopper handled it in a way that just disturbs me to the core.
Well, I mean, this is one of the things that was interesting, was the fact that I got in touch with this lawyer who has worked for Eagle Nation Cycles, but was also had a little bit of involvement with the Stephen Avery trial. He was a legal expert talking about how the defense were covering the case, you know. And strangely enough, was actually Ken Kratz's defense lawyer in his civil suit case when he was being when he eventually had to sort of settle out of court for an undisclosed fee to the original sexting victim, SVG. And I asked him, you know, has anybody ever apologized to Michael Funk and his family? And, you know, never. They've never done it. Same as with Stephen Avery. Nobody's ever apologized. And of course, the problem is any kind of apology is then considered an admission of guilt, isn't it? That's the big problem.
I suppose that's the way that's the way probably Nina looks at it. But to answer Scott Parrish's question here, they did try to bring a lawsuit. It was basically denied by Michael Griesbach's brother, who is a federal judge. And William Griesbach, and it was basically denied and basically thrown out of court. And the odd thing about it is that they were told it was dismissed because they missed a court date, but they were never even informed about the court date by their own lawyer. And then I was just going through some paperwork. This is actually funny. I was cleaning up my studio here because we're going to be having dim sum on Friday and coming back here. And so I was cleaning up my studio and I found some paperwork from Eagle Nation, and there was a letter in it that was written from Steve Arado's lawyer to him. And it was just a letter on top of the court documents, basically I think it's the decision basically, or the dismissal of the case or whatever it is. Right. So I was reading the letter and I was listening to the things that this lawyer was saying. He was like genuinely warning Steve to be careful and that he was worried about Steve and the folks there at Eagle Nation. Like it gave this whole, like, I'm just reading it thinking, this guy's scared. This guy is scared writing this letter right here. So I thought it was interesting, but yeah, it's a lot of weird things that go along with what happened there. But basically, when it came down to it in the end, the law favors the law enforcement in that situation so strongly that even what Hopper did doesn't send up a red flag. And that's just disturbing as hell for me. I think the people should be able to make the discernment here that if somebody's been hit in the line of, you know, in while on duty or whatever, but gets hit, they should be removed from the situation. They shouldn't be allowed to remain in it. Either, number one, they've been compromised somehow, either mentally, physically, or whatever, from the physical blow that they have suffered. But maybe they haven't suffered that, right? And if not, then their pride is hurt. Their pride is hurt. And they're possibly going to be wanting to look for their pound of flesh. It's a possibility, you know, and you can't deny it.
Yeah, I mean, the reason the film is called The $50 Million Bullet is because that's what they were suing for, wasn't it?
They were taking the $50 million, but they were, well, I think that one is about them suing about the raid back in 2012, where they came in there and tore the entire place up. I mean, just wrecked it, you know, expecting to find a big drug lab or something like that, and just found pretty much nothing, you know. Um,
A load of motorbikes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there was that case, and then obviously, yes, later Michael Funk's widow was bringing a case against Hopper for the wrongful death of Michael Funk, but eventually it got denied as well. It's tragic. It's absolutely tragic what happened, and I mean Hopper's just been awarded and promoted ever since. Like there's nothing wrong with it. Like it was. I that's the thing that kills me here. That was an unsuccessful day. That was a day. Okay, even if we say, okay, we understand it's rough being a cop and you don't always and sometimes you make a mistake. If we do, okay, well that was a day where you didn't get it right. So you shouldn't be getting awards for it. You know what I mean? That's if nothing else. I mean, obviously if you ended up doing the opposite of what your job is to do, then you probably shouldn't be getting an award for what you did that day. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, Travis is on the chat, and I asked him once about this. And I think most people, I would say, are in agreement about this. That the framing of Stephen Avery, it wasn't the money that Stephen was potentially going to get the main problem. Yeah, I mean, apparently, okay, we'll never know what he should have got, but he should have got somewhere, I believe, between 3 and 5 million, and that's still a lot of money. That's still a lot of money, and if we are to believe it correctly, in the in Making a Murderer, as Steve Glynn and Walt Kelly point out, they didn't have insurance when the wrongful conviction was as bad as it was, and that's why that phone call, that 95 phone call to Andy Colburn, that's why it's so important, because it caused the case to go from a simple potential 1.1 million payout up to this 36 million. But right. but speaking with Travis and a lot of other people, it wasn't really the money, although some of the
I think it's a factor.
Well,
but
I mean, you've got.
I don't think it's the biggest factor.
I mean, I certainly didn't realize there were 35 people deposed in that case, interviewed.
Yeah,
I didn't realize it was that many, because we only get to see the main players in deposition, don't we? We see Sandy Morris, Lenk, Colburn, Peterson, Couchet, Dvorak.
Yeah, Couchet sat for a long time too. They have I think over 2.5 hours with him.
Oh, and that guy was really cheesed off. You could tell he did not like being there, didn't he?
Oh, which reminds me, folks, there's a GoFundMe right now where they're trying to I don't know if they've gotten enough yet, but they're trying to raise the money to get all of those transcripts of those depositions right now. So
good thinking. Yes, it's being organized. Oh,
by Eric Banana Man and
yes.
I'm forgetting the name of the lady that's doing it too. But anyway, I'll find the link and I'll post it. I'll post it on Twitter.
Right.
Or you can go to Eric Banana Man on Twitter. I'm sure you'll find it there as well.
You would, yes. Yep.
Julie Wessel. That's right.
That's it. Yeah. So I'm thinking, well, what was the main reason for framing him then?
So what was the main reason, right? I'm saying that's
the embarrassment.
I think the real reason is they didn't want Vogel and Peterson getting deposed. Okay, because those were the next two. I'm sorry, Kosarik. Yeah. But right, Kosarik. They didn't want those two getting deposed. Those were the next two, and they didn't want those two guys getting deposed because, well, obvious things like Vogel obviously realized what was going on because there were Gregory Allen files in Stephen Avery's file. In his file for Stephen Avery, there was a manila folder full of stuff about Gregory Allen. So it's like that shows he made the connection and still ignored it, and prosecuted Stephen. I mean, there was going to be things that were going to come up that were going to be really embarrassing. It was going to be, it was, I think, more about saving face for Manitowoc at that point than it was about Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department. Basically, it was, I'm sure nobody was happy about it, but they basically decided at that point that they were going to, I don't know, whatever.
I would suggest to you that there is clearly a history of attorney generals, your Brad Schimmels, your Peg Leixelager,
right?
She in 05, 06, Brad Schimmel with the Eagle Nation Cycles. This whole idea that let's just brush it under the carpet, let's just let sleeping dogs lie, let's not rustle up anything. Given the fact that the civil suit went from 1.1 million to 36 million, and had it gone all the way through, would there have been a much greater spotlight on what happened?
If the civil suit had, I'm sorry, say that one more time.
If the civil suit had been allowed to carry on,
right,
and Steve be awarded this whatever figure, between 3 and 5 million or whatever amount up to 36 million, would that have triggered a new investigation? Would the press be saying, "Wow, what's going on here"?
While he was like awaiting trial, you mean?
Well, I mean, would even Peg Leixelager, would she actually be embarrassed by the fact that she initially said, "I find nothing wrong. There was just a lack of communication," and then it comes back that, oh no, it wasn't a lack of communication. It was it was deliberately withholding information that would have freed Stephen Avery 8 years earlier.
Yeah.
They just don't like getting caught.
Well, they don't.
In this lie.
Well, and that's clear. Look at Nina covering their butt. I mean, it's something in that area. It's like a knee-jerk reaction there in those certain areas of Wisconsin for them to act that way, rather than man up.
So what I'm sort of alluding to is, would this attention, because of Stephen Avery being successful in this civil suit, obviously what happened, for whatever motive, but I think we know what the motive is. The spotlight changed from being focused on the Manitowoc Sheriff's Department to being all on Stephen, and we're finding all this evidence. Mm-hmm. It got rid of that civil suit. But had the civil suit carried on,
had Stephen not settled it?
Well, what I mean as well is if Teresa Holbach went and took photographs and was still alive,
right?
Had she not disappeared, and things just carried on, because I mean, clearly, as Steve Glynn says, they never even ever thought to warn Stephen Avery, you've got to be careful because you've got a target on your back now. If you're trying to pursue the county for 36 million, they've not got insurance. But it's this embarrassment, and the fact that the spotlight would then be back on the shenanigans that's going on there. And could it be that there's other aspects of what's going on, probably not just in Manitowoc, but certainly in Manitowoc and in Wisconsin, that they just don't want the attention on?
Right. I mean, and look, if Teresa hadn't gone disappearing when she did, or hadn't disappeared when she did, and Stephen didn't get wrapped up in all that, then yeah, he would most likely be something of a celebrity amongst the wrongful conviction circles. He and particularly in that area of Wisconsin, because he was on TV all the time. At the time, he was constantly being seen with the big politicians and that sort of stuff. And so I mean, it's no doubt he would have been a lot. His case would have created a lot of attention. It would have maybe more people there in Wisconsin would have actually seen and recognized the corruption that was going on in the first case, to be able to recognize it happening again in the second one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it certainly could have done a lot of those things, because it certainly seems that when it comes to Wisconsin there, it's that a great deal of the people there are just unaware or don't care. Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey just aren't something that they've ever heard of or care about, and not everybody watches Netflix there apparently. So,
I mean, obviously that in both the Michael Funk case and in Stephen Avery's 85 wrongful conviction, nobody from authority, any kind of authority, has ever apologized either to Michael Funk's family, Eagle Nation Cycles, and certainly in the case of Steve, wrongful conviction. Robert Herman described it to me as unfortunate. And for me, the what he means by that is it was unfortunate that the fact that the evidence proved that he hadn't done it. There was no sort of. It was unfortunate that Steve ended up doing 18 years. Well, okay, let's take off the 6 years that he did get for running Sandy Morris off the road. Okay, right. I think it's important to always remember that. Okay,
right.
He would have done 6 years, or he was sentenced to 6 years for that. But with the fact that he never ever denied he did that, he fully admitted he did that,
right.
And he would have been paroled. I believe you normally do like 2/3 of your sentence, and then you're eligible for parole. So he would have got 6 years. And
depends where you are, but
after about 4 years. Well, that would mean okay. Difficult though that was for Laurie and the kids, Laurie would have probably stuck by him.
Yeah.
But what was she meant to do? Facing a 32 sentence, Steve adamant that he's not gonna confess to something he didn't do.
Right. Well, that's not Stephen's style, no.
No. What I found particularly interesting about, I always use this term, particularly interesting. Everything is particularly interesting. What I found curious.
There you go.
Was in this in this Post-Crescent article, the one about Jim Bray talking about the eyes. He could tell Steve was guilty by the eyes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, is that John Frank in late December? So this is December of 2015, late December. So this is just after Making a Murder came out. Was it the 15th or the 18th of December?
Wow, it came out.
I'm going to say 18th.
Yeah, it is, and God, that's 2 weeks after Michael Funk was killed.
Yeah,
I mean, the timing of it all is really odd, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway,
so John Frack wrote that in late December, Sheriff's Detective Dave Remiker circulated emails to Manitowoc County's top elected officials. Right? He wanted them to rally around the sheriff's department after fellow detectives, Colburn and Dennis Jacobs in particular, were becoming the recipients of angry voicemail messages. For me, that sounds like, come on, executive, we did this to help avoid the spotlight coming on you. Now, what are you going to do to help us?
Yeah.
Does that seem to be a possibility to you?
Well, anything's a possibility, It's all about having the proof to back it up, right?
Well, in actual fact, Dave Remiker, I think, gets pretty annoyed with, well, for example, Bob Ziegelbauer, because Jim Bray has wrote to them and told them that, no, you were absolutely fine. Your investigation was great. Interesting that Jim Bray is writing to the officers within Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department. In all my conversations with Rob Herman, he kept insisting it was nothing to do with Manitowoc. We were only there, providing, some assistance with personnel, because we're a much bigger sheriff's department than Calumet. But there is an admission in there that yes, Manitowoc were heavily involved in the investigation. But as I say, he gets pretty cheesed off with Bob Ziegelbauer.
Yeah,
because
I hear he's a real talkative guy.
Well, that's right. Exactly. I mean, let's just run through this again. Okay, so Remiker also sent an email to Manitowoc County Executive Bob Ziegelbauer indicating, I do not know what my expectations are from individuals that represent our county, but I would hope that there will be some discussions and potentially support given to these professionals that did exactly what they should have done in some very difficult circumstances. Now, for me, there's quite a lot of euphemism there.
Well, it's vague enough that you could take several meanings from it.
but they never talk in anything but euphemisms, do they?
Right. Well, there's
I mean, look, I always remember
they try not to get pinned down on anything. They really try.
I remember a friend of mine who is retired and was high up in the police when he retired, but when he was just like a sergeant or a constable, this is going back a few years. They went to arrest somebody who was being awkward and resisting, shall we say, and during trial it was put, he was asked, what did you do next? And he said, well, I took him outside and gave him counseling. He took him outside and clobbered him with his, the torches, right. the torches, the spot.
Oh yeah.
He clobbered him and got the torches.
Yeah, Maglite.
And the euphemism was, we gave him counseling.
Yeah. Tender loving care, no doubt.
Exactly. But this is the sort of thing that, when you read something like that, professionals to what in other words, he's asking Bob, he's saying, I don't know what my expectations are, but clearly he's got expectations of something to do with support. There will be discussions and support given to those professionals, in other words, given to us, the detectives that were, and the police, the Manitowoc Sheriff's Department, that were that did exactly what they should have done in very difficult circumstances. In other words, it was tricky to plant the stuff, but we got it done. We did a good job for you. Now, what are you going to do to help us cover up? Yeah. That's my reading of it.
Well, it's like I said, there's numerous ways that it could be interpreted because it's vaguely worded enough. And it's like I said with these guys, they try not to get pinned down on anything. They like to be able to wiggle.
Yes,
so
yeah, they tend to. You see it all the way through the, the sheriff's department. Ken Kratz this is one thing he's very good at, inferring at something without actually. I mean, I'll give you an example. Do you think somebody actually gave the order, frame Steve? No, I don't think there was ever an order given of frames. It was, we have a problem with this fellow. We can alleviate this situation.
Well, I imagine a backroom discussion with a couple of with a handful, maybe even a very small handful of officers or people.
Yeah, but I still think the sort of the chat would have been along the lines of because Kosorik's not there anymore, but Peterson and and Herman would have said, we've got this problem. How do we solve it? Wink, wink. Jim Link, Andy Colburn.
Well, we have this missing girl, and we have these remains that have been found over here. If perhaps somebody stealthily could move those over to implicate Stephen and put this RAV4 on his property, and suddenly, well, we got a case. I mean, that's exactly how easy it was to get this on Stephen, really.
Yeah, Vanessa.
Except for you gotta figure out how Stephen's blood gets in the RAV. But it's not hard because it's unconvincingly in the RAV. If Stephen's bleeding in the front of it, he would have been bleeding in the back of it, supposedly loading Teresa into the back of it. He would have been bleeding there too. So it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Vanessa's asked about the 20,000 a year. It was Mark Gundrum that said that because the for wrongfully being convicted, there was a statute that said that you got $25,000 maximum, because this statute went back like 100 years or something, didn't it?
It was like, I think it was in the 1800s or something.
Yeah. And he said, wow, presumably because they hadn't had a wrongful conviction as bad as that. Steve's, doing 18 years. It's incredible to think somebody, locked up for 18 years and then being freed. It was Mark Gundrum that said, wow, it should be $25,000 a year. And that's where the 450,000 came up, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But what happened to that 450,000?
Well, I've heard a lot of things claimed, but part of it went to Stephen's first attorneys, who obviously, when the settlement happened, they needed to get paid. So that's where a portion of it. Then there was how much left? Because they got 160,000, I think, and then there was 240,000 left for Stephen for his defense.
Well, isn't it bizarre how, Mark Gundrum was going to hand over a check for 450,000, okay, and that was going to be on top of, that was just going to be for starters, and then they were going to be going after this 36 million. He didn't get the 450,000, or did he? Where does this 400,000 come from? Isn't it remarkable how similar these sums are? It's been suggested to me that it was somehow that 450,000 was given to Vogel's lawyers. They kept 50,000 of that, and it's from Vogel's. This is bizarre. Vogel was never actually gave a deposition, but his insurers are the ones that pay up the 400,000. And it was that, as you say, 160,000 went to Glyn and Kelly.
Right.
So whatever percentage of 3 to 5 million they were going to get. I mean, typically it's a third.
Yeah.
Right. So they were looking at over $1 million, at least $1 million for themselves, and they're settling for 160,000.
Yeah.
What's caused them to do that? I mean, this is what Laura Riccardi was asking Steve in that phone call, wasn't she?
Well, it was Steve's decision, though.
Well, I don't think it was really Steve's decision. It was as a Steve and Avery. I think it was Glyn and Kelly that said, we've just got to settle this,
Well, and they may have wanted to at that point, seeing that Stephen was about to be in a very bad position anyway. They may have seen it that way. Let's cash in now, get out of it, and go find something else, right? They could have seen that as a PR nightmare, and there could have been a lot of reasons for them to want to find the exit at that point.
So,
Michael.
Well, certainly Dennis Vogel. Don't know who James. Well, we know the person that sent the flowers to Judge Angie is a
relative
of Vogel. Yeah. Okay. But of course, what Laura Riccardi is particularly concerned about, even more so than the fact that he's settled it and he's getting the money, is the fact that he settled it on the terms that Manitowoc Sheriff's Department accepted no responsibility.
Right.
That was the big problem, wasn't it? That the fact that it was settled and Manitowoc were not responsible. There was no huge problem with this phone call being sat on for 8 years.
Well, yeah, it's unfortunate, the timing of everything. Certainly, it certainly derailed Stephen's case because, yeah, for a lot of reasons. Yeah, I mean, and who knows what would have happened? I mean, that's what makes it all the more fishy. And then when you look at what they did to Brendan, I mean, see, for me, Brendan it's like the cherry on top of this corruption sundae, because it's like it wasn't going as well as they wanted. So what did they do? They went and corruptly, coerced this 16-year-old kid who's certainly not on par with his peers. You know what I mean? And coerced him, and then went and did the most damning press conference that you could possibly do, and went and did that and did everything they did with that very convoluted, nonsensical confession, that is highly contradictory. And then you got to look at the fact that it's all fed to him. It's all suggested to him in questions before he ever says it himself, and those sort of things. And so when you look at that whole mess and how that was done to try to reinforce the case they already felt was troubling or possibly weak. I mean, for me, what they did to Brendan shows they knew that they feared going to court with what they had, and they were trying to hedge their bets.
Yeah, well, I mean, looking at Brendan's case and looking at the cases of all, I mean, I've spent quite a lot of time going over these wrongful convictions and looking at the research done by various people, not just Steve Drizzen, who is obviously a lawyer defending, or trying to get defendants out. I think the Centre for Wrongful Conviction has, since it started, has had 40 exonerations. So they're doing a pretty good job there. But what's really annoying is the fact that, as I've shared with quite a few people, if you go onto Emily Matasik's Facebook page, there is footage from I'm going to say October 2017, following the en banc hearing, where Jerry Buting is being interviewed at the en banc hearing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's quite a long interview with the normal suspects in the media. And at the end, they asked Jerry Buting the same question that both Khan and Hamilton asked Laura Nyrider. Are they allowed to bluff? Are they allowed to lie?
Right.
Jerry Buting says that as far as he's concerned, no, they should not be allowed to lie. That, in fact, America is the only English-speaking country in the world where detectives are allowed to lie, to bluff to defendants. Yeah. Because the problem with Brendan is that he just doesn't have a clue, does he?
He doesn't understand the gravity. No,
he doesn't have the language skills. He certainly doesn't have any awareness whatsoever of the fact that he's being led this nice gentle conversation, but he has no idea where it's leading him.
Mm-hmm. Well, he certainly Brendan certainly didn't understand the gravity of it. He certainly had a child's outlook on it. He figured if he told them what he wanted to hear, he was going home or back to school or whatever. That's clearly what he believed was happening, which contradicts the assumption that he understands his Miranda rights. You see, that those two things don't jive. If he understood his Miranda rights, he wouldn't have been asking at the end, "Oh, am I going to be making it back for 6th period?" Okay, that's something. In if you understood your Miranda rights, you wouldn't even be asking that question.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, just to go back to the chat there, Asher, Asher. I have no idea how you pronounce that. Asheraya.
Asheraya. Asheraya.
Yes, Malak. Asking about, are the depositions available as transcript, audio, full video? Well, that's what we were actually talking about just earlier, with the fact that Eric Banana Man and Wessel?
Julia Wessel.
Yeah.
And it's this link here. Fen posted it earlier. Let me find it. I'll put it up on the screen for you guys.
And that's what they're
there it is.
Yeah.
So right there, folks, you can go there. That's a GoFundMe where they're trying to come up with I believe it was it $2 or $4 grand? I think it was $4,000 that they need, because all these pages, there's a bunch of them, and they're $1.90 a page. So they were trying to collect some money, pool some money together to buy them. So folks that are interested, there you go hit that up. So
that's what they're trying to do to get the to get a closer look at the depositions, because it's clear to me that they as Jerry Buting said, he sent us a message just for rally, didn't he? And what was Jerry Buting's message for those attending the rally? That these people,
are like vampires. Yeah.
The ones that have convicted Stephen Avery and the ones that are helping to perpetuate this, they are, well, sorry, you carry on. They're like
vampires hiding from the light.
And what's the
definitely
problem?
Afraid of the light being shown on them.
And what's the problem with truthers? We are shining that light.
Oh yeah, we certainly are.
Yeah.
We're in there. We're in there like we're like Al Bundy, with his little thing he created to go take the trash can out at night.
Mm-hmm.
He has I don't know if you ever saw Married with Children. He had lights on he had and big halogen lights, right? You know what I mean? The really, and he had one on each shoe, some on some shoulder pads. He had a football helmet with a couple lights. Anyway. So, anyways, no, I'm just goofing around.
No idea what you're on about, but anyway.
You were saying truth is shining a light, but anyways, never mind.
Yes, but I don't know who the Al Bundy is.
You don't know Al Bundy? You don't know Married with Children?
I've heard of Ted Bundy.
You've never heard of Married with Children, dude?
Oh, now I do actually. Yes, okay. I have seen that from
Al Bundy.
Long time back.
Yeah.
Is that the name of the character or the actor?
Al Bundy is the main character. He's the dad.
It's the character, right?
He's the dad.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yeah. I am familiar with that one. That is one that's crossed to the Atlantic.
Yeah. Oh, you bet it has. That show's a classic, dude. It rivals Still Game in my opinion. I say that only on Scottish soil, because obviously here in the States, Married with Children blows the doors off Still Game. But anyway.
The problem you would have is that with all of these likes of Rabsy Nesbitt, Still Game, and some of the other Scottish comedy, you really would need subtitles, and you would lose a lot of what's being said with the subtitles, because there are certain words that because they're being spoken in Scottish. Yeah, you would really need. I mean, I moved up to Scotland when I was 18. For a month, I lived in Melrose, and after a month of living in Melrose, I was thinking, what on earth have I done? to myself coming here. I could not understand what people were saying to me. I genuinely could not. You know, I'd worse, even worse than Richard Boyd. I mean, I can barely make out what that guy is saying. But when it comes to and I do like you, Richard, but I do struggle, I must admit, to make out what it is you're saying because of the accent, because of the language, because sometimes things are said, and it's inferring something, which I don't get, you know, and which people watching somebody, you know, something from Scotland, they wouldn't quite appreciate what's being inferred, would they? You know?
Yeah.
In other words,
it helps me because I've done some acclimation. I've watched some Scottish YouTubers. I've been, you know, hanging out and talking with you and even Eunice and stuff. So like, I've been getting acclimated to Scottish culture. So now I watch it. Now I understand when they say, when I hear somebody say, I can't do it. You know, some people are going to go, what the hell did they say? They're basically saying they cannot do it. In Scotland, they say nay instead of not. So instead of saying cannot do it, they say can. And so nay, you know, words like nay get used a lot. And there's a lot of other things, particular ways they pronounce things. They don't say cow, they say coo. They don't say you know, they don't say now really, they say new. Mm-hmm. You know, there's just a lot of things about Scottish, the way they speak, you know, that makes it difficult to understand. So I get what you mean.
I know it's really strange. It's like we actually, when we pronounce the word water, we actually pronounce the T. We don't go water.
Yeah. You know what? No, dude, no. Go study Scotland and how well they pronounce their T's. Yeah, go ask go find somebody with a real good Scottish accent and ask them to say patter for you.
Had you wished, man?
Sling my hook?
No.
My hook?
Not quite.
Oh man.
Oh dear. So
no, but it ends up coming out like patter, where the T is like not even there. Now, one word they say in Scottish where the T rings out like a cathedral bell is when they say shite. Oh yeah, that T rings out like a church bell. It's Yeah, it's amazing. Scots are funny. I love you guys.
Well, I mean, I've kind of gotten used to some of the different accents that you have in America.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, you know, here in Scotland, the accents vary. If you go 18 miles down the road to Hoyk, for example, they've got a whole different dialect altogether and vocabulary,
right,
that they use.
I've noticed that. Yeah, following a lot of Scottish people now on Twitter and Scottish organizations and stuff. Watch it, because you Scots, you love to type. You type in that Scottish patter, you know, so they actually type it out like they want to, like they would say it, which is funny. So I see a lot of that on Twitter, you know, where there certainly is that different regions have a certain different way of saying things, or sometimes like watching audio clips or video clips, like the certain emphasis on enunciation that they seem to do in different regions is interesting, you know, so.
Anyway, just before I let you go away and ball your heat.
We've been rambling on for an hour and 12 minutes already. So
what I would want you just to recap, if you would, for a moment, is what's coming up. We've got another chat with McGilla.
Are we doing a chat with McGilla on Sunday?
I think that was the plan, wasn't it?
I believe so. Yeah, we're going to be finishing up. I think what we're going to do is start off with the Loof set presentation that we were going into at the end of the last one, and we'll start out with that this time, and then we'll cover whatever else there may be there, or that he has. I mean, I don't know what exactly we got, but we'll certainly. I'm ready to be there on Sunday. So
Well, as I say, I've got to practice, so I'll be there just before, because it's 9 o'clock my time, 1 o'clock in the afternoon your time, 3 o'clock central, and then sort of maybe about 11 o'clock my time, which would be 5 o'clock central, 3 o'clock your time. If Steve and Kay are available, we can.
We'll see. Well, yeah, we'll see if we can do it tomorrow. But I'm fairly sure we're probably gonna have to do it at least next weekend, and maybe even later than that. We'll have to see how well Kay's doing.
Yeah.
So.
And as I say, also it would be interesting to have a chat with the fella Fleetside. He said that he's looking forward to coming on a chat. But obviously, a bit like McGilla, when people come on the chat, they don't have to show the faces. Although I do remember you quite rightly pointed out that when it comes to people hosting, it's nice if at least the host is visible.
Right.
That's always a good thing. But
right.
Then, when you got
people appreciate that, seeing a real live person to connect with.
Yeah, but when you got people coming on who who don't want to be seen, there's usually a pretty good reason for that.
Yeah.
I mean, most people out there still don't know your name.
Erekose, I know, huh?
Well, I've seen your passport, dude. That is not what it says on your passport. Anyway, yes.
This one?
Yes. So I'm probably going to do another little video to send to Bob Ziegelbauer, because so far I've sent him stuff, and very, very respectfully he replies with an albeit rather brief thanks. That's literally it. Thanks, just one word. Thanks. He just. And again, I take that as being the fact that, is it a case of he feels obliged to respond because that's he's a county executive, that's his Facebook page. He's more or less obliged to respond, isn't he?
Yeah.
But he's basically not want to say anything at all about it.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, that's what it is. So I'm going to go ahead and play another Stacy song, folks, on the way out. Thank you for being here, Paul. It's been an interesting discussion as usual.
Well, I mean, it's time is it now? 6:30. I've seen Jerome saying, "Can I come and chat now?" Honestly, I can barely keep my eyes open. So I'm gonna go and have a lie down for.
Oh, hey, Scooby. You're gonna go have a lie down. Well, sleep. Have a good sleep there, buddy.
Yeah.
Good night to you and anybody else out there that's heading to bed. But on your way to La La Land there, or the land of Z, we'll have Stacy Seabrook take us out. So
okay,
right.
Catch you later, buddy.
Ooh, I'm the prize. Ooh, I'm the prize. I'm the prize. Come and feast your eyes. I know you won't fantasize about me, sweaty. Ooh, how I tantalize, 'cause I'm the prize. Ooh, I'm the prize. I'm an upstanding member of community. I've got prosecutorial immunity. I can do whatever I want. Underline that in your boldest font. I got the backing of the state tailor my to win. Even if I'm popping my kid in, and it don't matter how shoddy the science. I'm too busy now sexing my clients, 'cause I'm the prize. Ooh, I'm the prize. I can put you away before your trial begins. I tell the media all your sins, it don't matter. can't do anything. I'm above the law. I can do things that'll drop your jaw. I can hide things that I'm supposed to disclose. It don't matter if everybody knows, cause I'm the prize. Ooh, I'm the prize. Did I happen to mention immunity? I can control everything that the defense sees. I can cheat, I can lie, I can fabricate, and I can hide. I'm the prize. Ooh, I'm the prize. Sweaty sweat, I'm the prize.
I love that one, folks. All right, that's about it. I'm sorry it feels like I just hung up on you, Vanessa Overton, but here you are getting your own special goodbye at the end here. Hey, Scooby. Goodbye, T1. Goodbye, Don. Goodbye, Sela. And goodbye, Jerome. And goodbye, Travis. We'll see y'all.
And it's goodbye from him.
And it's goodbye from him. There you go. See you guys.